speakers in this class throughout the semester. Many of them will be from our campus, from our athletics perspective, which is great, good experience for you to get, but we're really happy when we get some people from outside of our building so you can get perspective other than what you know kind of in your life on this campus. So Jeff Behrens, Director of Athletics at Whitewater High School, has graciously agreed to give up his time to come over and speak to you. So I'm going to shut up and let him start and make sure you have some questions for him at the end.
Thanks for having me. I put my name and my email up there. I'll get to that kind of at the end, but I'll kind of ask, if anybody's interested in, I see Alex is here, but Alex does a lot of officiating for us and helps coordinate officials for us. But if any of you are aspiring officials, or if you want to simply make some extra money and want to work some high school events, it's pretty easy work, and it's just an easy way to get extra $25 or whatever it might be. We're always looking for people to help us out with events and stuff like that. So that's my email. If you're ever looking, if that's something that you're interested in, by all means, shoot me an email sometime, and I can get you hooked up with a job, whether it's officiating or crowd control or whatever, taking tickets, anything like that. So first thing, again, my name is Jeff Behrens. I'm the athletic director at Whitewater High School. Talking to Mr. Carollo here, none of you are Phi Ed majors, right? No Phi Ed majors in here? Anybody going into education at all? Okay, what?
Math.
Math? And
I'm a Phi Ed major.
you are a Phi Ed major, okay. But everybody in here is a coaching minor? No? No, or close to it?
Probably sports management.
Well, sports management, okay, okay. How many people are in a coaching minor then? Okay, a few. When we look at coaching and where coaching is going, especially at the high school level, we're getting more and more coaches that are not teachers. They're not in education. There's been an influx of responsibilities that's been put on teachers, and responsibilities that just weren't there before, and so time for teachers is really becoming a hard thing to come across, and so we're finding more and more coaches outside of our buildings, and which presents its own challenges, not only for us as a school district, especially communication-wise, but also for the coach. But it is, again, becoming more and more common. At Whitewater, this is my 6th year at Whitewater, and when I first got there, we had a low number of coaches that were outside the district, and that number has just continued to grow more and more each year. I just hired a new boys tennis coach this morning, someone that's out of our district. He's not in education at all. I think he's going to be very good, but it presents its own challenges, especially, like I said, communication, making sure that he's on board, him communicating with athletes, me communicating with him. Oftentimes now I'm the liaison between him and the athletes and things like that, and it's just, it gets to be tough, but definitely can be done. So how I got here as an AD, I actually grew up in Whitewater. I'm a hometown boy, homegrown right here, and then I went to university here. I was a Warhawk, and I came here. I played baseball for a couple years, and then through some different reasons, had to take a year off of school, and that kind of ended my baseball days. And during that year off, being from town here, the local baseball coach said, "Hey, you want to come back and coach?" And so I jumped at the opportunity, and I ended up coaching football, coaching wrestling, and I ended up being a 3-sport coach here while I was in college. And then my senior year of college, I was a big wrestler, and I didn't want to graduate college without wondering what if I would have tried wrestling, so I went ahead and I wrestled my senior year. All great experiences, but it was the coaching that I really fell in love with. And upon graduating, I graduated with a Phi Ed non-licensure degree. That's what it was called back then, which is basically now your human performance, right? Human performance degree. And but once I realized that I really loved coaching and maybe I wanted to go into education, I was too far along in my track. And so I said, oh, well, you know what, maybe I'll coach while I work in human performance and kinesiology and all that kind of stuff. And So I went on and I became a personal trainer, and about 6 months later, I decided this is not it. This isn't what I want to do. I want to get back into education. I want to coach, and ultimately, while I was coaching, I happened to be sitting in a class like this, right down the hall, and there was an AD that came and spoke, and I thought, wow, that sounds like a pretty cool profession. And I thought, you know what, I can see myself coaching here for several years. I was 21, 22 at the time, and thought, I'll coach for a good 10, 15 years and then be an AD. Sounds like a good track, and so I made a goal that I wanted to be an AD by the time I was 35, and then I obviously continued to coach and so on. But so I came back, got my teaching degree from being a personal trainer, and then got a teaching job at Horicon, Wisconsin, small little town between here and Oshkosh, and became the head wrestling coach, coached football, coached baseball, and realized some success quickly, and really just became passionate about coaching, passionate about working with kids, passionate about creating and accomplishing goals and all that kind of stuff, and thought, you know what, now I really can see that goal of being an AD someday. And so I went and I got my master's, because even though I have, and still to this day, I have zero desire to ever be a principal or an assistant principal, I knew that in order to open more doors down the road, I might have to be like an assistant principal / athletic director or something like that. So I got that master's degree and decided that, you know what, I really like coaching, I really love it, I like working with the kids, I think I experienced some success, so I think I know what I'm doing. And so I went ahead and took the leap, and I became an AD actually when I was 34. So that's how I got to Whitewater. I feel lucky to be at Whitewater, not only because it's my alma mater, but Whitewater has 19 now state championships, and that puts us in the top 95% of high schools in Wisconsin. There are only 19 schools that have more state championships than us out of 505. So we have a very rich athletic tradition, and I feel happy to be obviously doing that at my alma mater, where I went to school, where I grew up, working with people that were kind of coming in when I was leaving, because it was that long ago, but so yeah, I feel really lucky. More relevant to you guys and what athletic management might be, are there any other people in here that are interested in being an AD at some level? Okay, a few. The role is ever changing, and take this as a warning. Like for example, I wanted to be an AD. Well, at Whitewater, I'm not only the high school and middle school athletic director, I'm also a teacher. I teach 2 classes of Phi Ed. I'm also the facility manager, so any facility request, anything that somebody wants to use the building, whether it's a teacher in the building or whether it's, I don't know if this person happens to be in here, but I get college kids that call and say, hey, can we use the softball field this weekend? There's no room to practice at the university. We'd like to use the softball field. I take on all of those requests and either approve or deny them, schedule them, make sure that people are using all of those facilities appropriately. So I take care of all of that kind of stuff on top of being an AD, on top of being a teacher. And then I also am a teacher evaluator now. That's something they sprung on me this year, where I'm now going in and evaluating some of our teachers. And so because I made the decision to get my master's degree to open more doors, that's an unfortunate door that became open this year. So just one more duty that they said, hey, you can do this. So I guess that's my warning is, the role of athletic director is ever changing, even at the big schools. When you look at, the top Division II, the Madison area, the Wanakees, the Sun Prairies, not Sun Prairie, but Wanakee, Verona, all of those schools up there, oftentimes the AD does have some kind of assistant principal duties. I know that Wanakee just hired a new AD this summer, And that position used to be solely athletic director, activities director. And now that person's gonna be evaluating teachers. So they're basically, because of what's happening in education, more and more responsibilities are being thrown on administrators along with teachers, and they're saying, hey, we don't have money to hire more people, so just, there's gonna be different people that have to take on more responsibility. So that's kinda, what I do. A normal day is, really there is no normal day. I start off, I'm a big to-do list, post-it type of person. I start off each day with a to-do list, and I'm lucky if I get to a couple things on that to-do list. I joke around with my wife and other people that I'm more of a firefighter than anything else, because I'm just putting out fires left and right. That's kind of how I feel I go about my day. Today, I had my to-do list, and I've had 2 parent concerns that I've had to work with all morning. That's taken up my entire morning. I teach 2 classes, so I had, right when I got to school today, I had voicemails, had to attend to these parent concerns that happened over the weekend. Went and taught a class, 2 classes, came back, and been dealing with them ever since. So I'm actually lucky, glad to be out of there, come over here for a little while. But yeah, a lot of times on that to-do list, I'm trying to make sure that you know, our officials are gonna be showing up. I'm trying to make sure that our buses are gonna be showing up. If we have a home event, tomorrow night's our first home volleyball match. So I really wanna make sure that our workers are prepared. They're gonna have to show up. I'm not gonna come there and all of a sudden we don't have a worker showed up. So make sure that those types of things are you know, set in place. Contest management, we have multiple events going on all the time, making sure that, you know, our ticket taker knows that it's parents' night, so all parents get in for free, and the ticket taker at the swim meet that's going on at the same time knows that it's senior night, and so there might be a bigger crowd, and that they have to watch for these passes, and then we have to make sure the national, I mean, it's just ongoing. It's a lot of time. It's not a 7:30 to 3:30 job. I'm lucky a lot of times if I get out of there by 5, and then most nights, 2-3 nights a week, I have athletic events to supervise at night. So it's a time-consuming job. But with all that negativity, I definitely like it. I like working with coaches. I like working with athletes. I have a homeroom that I'm lucky enough to handpick senior athletes to be part of my homeroom. And there's senior athletes that I think can be influential in changing culture, that can be influential in adding new things to our school climate. And so I like working with those kids and hopefully having an impact on the greater mass of student athletes. You know, obviously I work with athlete eligibility, athletic code violations, all that kind of stuff. For some reason, this has been a crazy year already. I've had to deal with a lot of athletic code violations already, when the last couple of years it's been pretty quiet, thankfully. I already mentioned parent concerns, budget. I deal with all the budget for athletics. And I've been very fortunate to find money for coaches when coaches need it. Obviously, the regular athletic budget that comes from the district isn't very big. Luckily, I've been able to, whether through tournaments, hosting tournaments, or asking local organizations to help us out, I've been able to find some money to help coaches out with their equipment needs and things like that. In fact, a local organization, I went to them about a month ago, a couple weeks ago, somewhere in there, and my big emphasis on this year is coach professional development. And I want to be able to send coaches to clinics. I want to be able to bring in speakers for our coaches and really help our coaches grow. And obviously that's going to take some money that I don't necessarily have in my athletic budget. So I went to a local organization and said, hey, can you donate a few $1,000s to help with this cause? You know, it's going to benefit kids and benefit our coaches, hopefully get our coaches to stick around. And so it's going to require me to work at a pancake breakfast here and there, but small price to pay. I'll work a couple pancake breakfasts so our coaches can have a little bit more professional development opportunities. So things like that. I love working with the coaches. I love, last year we had 3 state championships. Our girls basketball team won a state championship, which was an unbelievable amount of work on my end, but it was so worth it. It was a great experience for our kids, for our families, for our school. Our boys swim program had 2 state championships, a relay team, and an additional individual. So it was, those types of things just make it all the other stuff kind of go away for a while, and it's just a lot of fun. Some short-term things that I have on my horizon. I mentioned the professional development for coaches, but also ongoing is facility management. Since I took over 6 years ago, we've done almost $1 million in facility improvements for our athletic facilities. When previously, I don't know if $25 was spent on it. So that's been a huge priority for me, and we've seen a lot of improvements. I don't know, Joe, did you see the new floor yet?
I have not. I saw it in process. They
Okay.
were staining it.
We basically redid our whole gym floor, and it looks pretty awesome. We got new scoreboards on almost all of our facilities now, and just continue to improve our outdoor facilities and make sure our maintenance is up and all that kind of stuff. And then, like I mentioned, changing the culture, talking with our student athletes and really having more of a championship culture in our school. Right now, I think that even though I mentioned that we have a lot of state championships in our history, we've been kind of in a dry spell except for last year when it comes to state championships. And I think too often it comes down to the culture that's within the school and within the athletic department. And so I'm trying hard to change that culture and working with student athletes to do that. On long term, in addition to always ongoing improvements to our facilities, because of the way education and funding education is going, I'm looking at revenue generating opportunities. So we're looking at trying to get some way to, for example, to get a video board in our main gym. That will bring in some sponsorship opportunities and in turn some sponsorship money. And then that money can go help other programs, whether it be uniforms, whether it be professional development, equipment, those types of things that our athletic department just doesn't have the money to spend on all the time. So it's interesting, there was a study done this summer down in North Carolina, South Carolina, and they tracked over the last 10 years who won the most state championships. And it came down to, which we've all kind of figured, but it was the schools that had the most money. And so there was obviously a direct correlation between schools with money and state championships. And so I'm really trying to put an emphasis on bringing more money into our school and somehow increasing that money, making sure that we have all the proper opportunities and equipment needs and all that kind of stuff for our student athletes to make sure that one raises it's going to raise participation numbers, get some of those kids out for athletics that might not otherwise be out for athletics, and then make sure that they're playing with the best stuff. So I don't know, any questions? Anything else you want me to touch on?
These guys want to hear.
Yeah.
So about like parent concerns, what are most like average, most usual parent concerns that you kind of get?
No matter how much I talk about it, it's playing time. And I start off every year with a big meeting, a mandatory meeting for all of our athletes, all of our parents. And I talk about the process that, if there's a concern, including playing time, that the athlete should talk to the coach first. If the issue isn't resolved, then a parent should set up an appointment with a coach. And then finally, the last step is, if the issue is still not resolved, then it should come to me and I'll try to mediate. But for example, the parent, the big one today was daughter didn't play. She missed a practice last Monday. So they didn't play her on Tuesday, which is a team rule. You miss a practice before a game, you don't play. And then in the process, certain girls started gelling together and started playing well together, so she kind of lost her spot. So then she didn't play much on Thursday, and that set everything off, and so now I'm trying to mend that bridge a little bit. So, yeah.
Do you think coaches make better athletic directors or somebody outside the athletic department?
Definitely, coaches are gonna have more insight in what's going on. I would say at the high school level, yes, coaches are gonna, somebody with coaching experience is gonna have, an easier transition into that role than someone who hasn't coached.
How difficult is it to get like a new sports athletic program within your school? Like right now, rugby is one of the fastest growing sports in the nation, and I know high schools are starting to get it. Is that really difficult if you have like girls that are interested and not boys, or?
What makes it easier is if other schools are doing it as well.
Right.
If we're the pioneer, I'm a big quote person, and one of the quotes that comes to mind is the first man through the wall always gets bloody. And so if we're the first team that's trying to do that, like rugby hasn't really hit the scene around here. Girls lacrosse, on the other hand, it has. And if there are other schools that are doing it, so if we determine that we have enough interest in it in our school, then we can look at bringing it on, but we have to make sure that there's an opportunity out there. And so if other schools are doing it and we can find other schools to play within reasonable distance that's feasible, we can do it. And obviously there are other things like Title IX, which I don't know if we talked about, but Title IX that come into play and things like that. In activity, on the other hand, like for example, we Whitewater had cheerleading, I don't know, 10 years ago. They cheerleading then was cut, and we brought it back this year as a club, and so it's as an activity. And that's a little bit easier because we don't have to necessarily find other schools or conference to play in. We can just provide that opportunity. But we did so because cheerleading does not count for Title IX, and so we wanted to make sure that we were not pulling girls from athletic teams, which do count for Title IX, and which would end up hurting us. So we modified the team rules, so to speak, so that athletes, if they wanted to do it, they could do it. So cheerleading can never have practice during an athletic time and things like that. So I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
You're talking about the budget. Does Whitewater have a booster club?
We do.
Contribute?
Yeah, we do, and we rely on them heavily. We have an all-encompassing booster club, which some schools have an all-encompassing, and some schools have, each sport has their own booster club, which, again, for Title IX purposes is a nightmare. I would definitely recommend and suggesting an all-encompassing. But our booster club is very good. They have a lot of money, and in 6 years have never said no to a coach request. So they've been very good and very helpful, yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
What sort of athletic code violations do some of your student athletes commit?
Drinking. Drinking's the big one. We had a trespassing one happen a couple weeks ago. Some kids broke into a school at 2:30 in the morning. So obviously that's a code violation, not being good boys. But 3 years ago, I put in a social media policy, which has been growing across the country. And so obviously, lewd, explicit, sexual posts on any kind of social media is now an athletic code. Even if I wanted to, we put language in there, if a kid swears on Facebook and it comes to me, I can technically give them an athletic code violation, but I'm not really gonna do it unless they're saying Mr. Behrens is an athletic code. Yeah.
I know that WA has like their own like standards that you can follow for like
Yeah.
academic. I don't know if you guys have anything on top of that.
Yeah, we have an academic portion of the athletic code, so we go on quarter basis. If a kid has one F, but their GPA is above a 2.0, they're okay. If they have one F and is below a 2.0, they're ineligible for a set amount of games depending on how many are on the schedule. If they have two Fs and then they're out. if they have no Fs and, their GPA is below 1.75, they still have a buyout. Yeah, so that's something that's also my responsibility. After every quarter, after every grading period, I have to go through all the rosters and make sure that all the grades are up to date. And I do have a secretary, but she's 50%. So she's there on Monday, Wednesday, Friday mornings, and Tuesday, Thursday afternoons, which actually presents probably more challenges than anything else, because if there's something that happens on let's say a Monday afternoon, now she's not back in until Tuesday afternoon, so I've got to take care of it anyway. So it actually, more times than not, presents more problems than helps. But yeah,
Do you guys do random drug testing?
we don't, and simply because of money. It costs a lot of money to do it. There are a couple schools that do, and actually they're finding out that it's not really worth the money. They're not getting a whole lot of hits on it, and it's just not worth the money.
Since you do the budget, do you get like a lot of complaints from the coaches and stuff because they think you're benefiting one sport compared to the other?
Basically the way I do our budget is, because I'm strapped for cash, I basically say, I'll have enough money to get your necessities, for you to run your program. So if you're a football coach, I'll get your footballs and your shoulder pads and all that kind of stuff. But if you want new blocking dummies and stuff like that, you're probably gonna have to fundraise for that. And so for the most part, it works out. There are some times, because I am conscious for Title IX, where I see that girls' athletics might be $10,000 less than boys' athletics, and so I'll try to even it out a little bit and do some creative line adjusting in my budget, where maybe the girls' swim will get, because they'll oftentimes share equipment with the boys, they'll get the money appropriated to them versus our boys, so that shows that it's going to the girls, so, yeah.
How do you evaluate folks' performance? Like, is it just win and loss, or is it more like what's in?
No, in fact, wins, loss don't factor in at all. It's all about, basically, I have a preseason meeting with each coach before their season. I'll do some walkthroughs, so I'll walk through some of the practices every once in a while. I purposely park my car in the back of the school, so I have to walk through basketball practice, or I have to walk by soccer practice or something to get to my car. And that way I can just see what's going on. And then, I'm just evaluating what the goals are, those types of things, looking for student improvement, student athlete improvement over the course of the season. And just making sure that they're organized, all that kind of stuff. If I find a coach that is not performing to what they should be, I created a thing called an APIP, which is an athletic program improvement plan, where they come in and sit down with me, and we basically we take off all the varnish, and we take a good hard look at what's going on in your program and how we can make it better. And if things still don't turn around or get better, then we have to look at removing coaches, which unfortunately I've had to do, and it's not fun. Yeah.
How do you go about like going out and trying to find a coach? Like, what do you look for in a coach?
It's getting harder and harder to find coaches because of the time commitment, low pay, the negativity that comes around with coaching. But it's just getting harder and harder. And so one of the unique things I did a couple of years ago, we were looking for a new baseball coach, and we had a couple of applicants, and I wanted to increase the pool a little bit. I didn't want it to come down to 2 applicants. And so what we did was I learned that Fort Atkinson down the road had just went through their hiring process, and they had about 6 applicants or 6 people that they interviewed and didn't hire. And so I asked the AD, I said, hey, can you give me the names and contact information for those guys? Maybe they want to come over here. Maybe they don't even know that we have an opening. So I contacted those guys and brought them in. We had a great interview pool, and it actually turned out really well. We had a lot of great coaches that interviewed, and we have a good coach now, former Warhawk. Yeah, that was a good thing. Another thing that our local school district is doing is they're looking at providing bonuses for any teachers that want to coach, on top of their coaching salary, simply to help get more teachers coaching. So it's getting tougher and tougher, but yeah.
Are your coaching salaries percentages or?
They're percentages of our base salary, yeah. And unfortunately, low percentages. Anything else? Yeah.
How much of a role does the WIAA play in like your day-to-day work?
On a day-to-day basis, probably not very much. I mean, every week they're looking something up or contacting them, or last week they had an area meeting, which most of the ADs in our area went to, and obviously last spring, I don't know, you guys probably didn't hear, but there was a big vote last spring on competitive equity and basically private schools versus public schools and all that kind of stuff, and there is a component, yeah. I mean, they're definitely the overseer, and so I have to make sure we're in compliance with a lot of things too.
For say like Whitewater was overperforming their conference or underperforming, what would you have to do in order to like change conferences? Is that your role or whose role is that necessarily?
It's the WIA's, but they would never change a conference based on your competitiveness. It would only be enrollment. For example, we have a school in our conference right now that their enrollment, they're about 250, 275 kids. And we have McFarland in the conference that has probably 750. And so we have a very large range of enrollments, and so Parkview is looking at trying to get out of our conference, and they've been trying for years, but unfortunately there's no real conference for them to go to, and it shifts a lot of conferences around, which they don't like, and so I don't think it's going to happen, but that's what they're trying. So it's more enrollment based than competitively based. Anything else?
I've got one thing. I don't know if you guys caught it, but Jeff is also the middle school director of activities as well. Matt Amundsen's gonna come at the end. We're gonna have one section on youth sport and management. Anything point out or share about that part of your role?
That role is much less stressful. Our middle school philosophy is basically just get as many kids involved as we possibly can. We have we have our first middle school volleyball match tonight, and it's really, I mean, we put scores on the scoreboard, but it's really not a competitive atmosphere per se. But we have, let's see, I want to say almost 30 girls out for our 8th grade team, and because it was over 25, finally I was able to get an assistant coach.